Welcome to the webinar. My name is Tanmay and I'm part of the developer community team. During the webinar today, discover an example where users can pick two colors, which are then used for redesigning the whole app. Temenos Principal Architect Paul Senkel is going to talk about how to customize applications with themes and skins even at runtime. Before we start the session, let me share a few things with you guys. Make sure you use the Q&A panel and post your questions there. We will try and answer you as soon as possible. Please don't post in the chat panel. We have a dedicated Q&A panel for your questions. We are also recording this webinar and it will be posted on Basecamp as a resource. So any of your friends or colleagues or partners, customers, if they're not able to join today, you can share that link later also with them. We also have a couple of polls that we are going to run during the session. So make sure you participate and make this webinar fun. Let's start the presentation. Over to you, Paul.
Hi everybody, I'm Paul Senkel. Tanmay, thank you very much for the introduction. So let me start by sharing my screen. Let's make this an exciting session. There we go, share. Okay, guys, can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Tanmay? Okay,
yeah, we can see
perfect.
Yeah, we can see it.
Great. So yes, I'm very, very excited to talk to you about two key features today. They are not necessarily wide used as far as I know, but you can maybe tell me that I should have a different opinion because it might very well be the case that you're already using theme switching at least. So first question to you guys. Are you aware that an application can use multiple themes? Are you already aware of this? So I'll give you a couple of minutes. While I'm continuing the presentation. So the idea is to show you today how you can make your app a true chameleon. I mean, we are all changing shirts, trousers on a daily basis. We are changing styles, we are changing makeup. Well, at least most women do. And our applications, well, usually they are using the same theme or the same look and feel until, well, the next version is coming out. So I want to show you how we can actually change that and give our applications a much more well, human touch to them. So one feature which is relatively common is theme switching. So if you're aware of this, well, in an application which you build with Kony Quantum, you can create several themes for your applications. This is very useful if you're building applications for a customer who has several brands or who wants to target several groups of customers where you say, okay, I want to have a different kind of experience for certain people of a certain age. I want to have fonts which are bigger for people of another age, or I want to use different colors because in different regions, people might react differently to different color schemes. Or you want to use different colors on a seasonal basis. Now, when it comes to theme switching, you have to prepare these themes in your application, and you can use the Kony theme set current theme API where you target one of these themes. So Tanmay, maybe this is a good moment to have a check at the answers from the question and to ask the second one. Okay, cool. So you're aware of this. Great. So the second question would be, have you already used this actively in your applications? Tanmay, can we get a second question? Perfect. Great. So we leave that poll open for a second. I'm going to introduce a second subject which I want to cover today, which is the theme generation. Theme generation is a really cool feature. It's pretty unique as far as I know, and it consists in actually being able to create a theme at runtime. The use case for this can be that you want to develop an application for several customers. It can also be something like a template application. And if you build this for several customers which you do not know yet, then obviously you cannot prepare themes for every single customer because you don't know their main colors, their main themes, etc. You cannot know their brands or their target groups. Also, if you're doing this for retail, for example, you may want to apply seasonal colors to your application. well, you cannot know these seasonal colors in advance. And if you do not want to rebuild your application for every season, well, retheming or dynamic retheming can be the answer to this. Also, if you're changing your corporate identity now and then also, if you want your application to reflect these changes, and if you don't want to regenerate binaries, then dynamic retheming can also be the answers. So for this, we have two APIs which we can use. The first consists in creating a theme at runtime through Kony theme create theme from JSON string, and then we use the API which we're also already using for switching between the hard-coded themes, which is the Kony theme set current theme. Okay, let's have a look at how you answered, how people answered to the second question. So, okay, you're aware of it, and well, 20%, that's actually pretty good, are using static themes already. Now, the question which I have is, which would be the next question, now that I mentioned theme generation. How many of you are aware of this dynamic theme creation feature? Are you aware of this? Okay, so while you're answering, let me pursue. So theme generation, using these APIs, obviously you can have different strategies on that. A strategy which can be easy is that you're actually regenerating certain parts of your theme in your application. That means that you build a JSON string in your application and you retheme this directly, dynamically. This could be something where you want to enable people to personalize certain things in your application. And people can select the colors they want to see in certain parts of your app, for example. Other strategies could be that your application is looking for new themes and is downloading them as they become available. So you're just simply creating a theme, a JSON representation of your theme on your server, and you're downloading it as you go, which enables your app to always use your latest corporate or seasonal colors. And a third strategy would be the most interactive approach, which I'm going to illustrate today, is that you actually have your application send parameters to your server. Your server is going to dynamically create a theme, download it, and apply it to the application. Obviously, you can take that to many different levels. Today, I'm going to illustrate you how I use that for changing an application just by changing two colors. And that's what I'm going to illustrate to you in a few minutes. But before we go to theme generation, let's have a look at how, okay, close to 20% are aware of this feature, which would take me to the next question. How many of you have used it? And while you answer this question, let's have a look at the theme switching part. So theme switching, I built this proof of concept for a company which has two big brands, and they wanted to use this, build applications for their employees. And depending on which brand you're working for, you would get actually the look and feel of your brand, because these applications would potentially also be used together when helping customers make purchase decisions. So in here, I'm just with a click of a button, I'm applying a completely different theme. And you can see that it's not just colors which are changing, but also border sizes are changing, font sizes can change. I mean, virtually anything which you can do and modify in a skin can be modified. So this is something which you do. Let's have a look at Quantum. Where is my Quantum? There you go. So this is something which you do in your Visualiser. Usually you have your default theme, you will build it, you will create your full application, and then you can actually use your theme. You can duplicate it very easily and then branch off the themes which you want to create. For example, I've got an orange and a red branch here, and these themes are the ones which I'm using for switching. All right, so it's as simple as that. In your application, you need to provide a function. You need to provide some logic. It can be based In my case, it's just a button which I'm clicking, but in a more professional use case, you could, following the login of a person, you could check which kind of service or branch that person is associated with. And then you can pull the appropriate theme and apply it by using Kony theme, set current theme, and then use the theme by name. It's as simple as that. The second approach, which I want to talk about, is the live generation of themes. So live generation of themes is something which can enable you to change the look and feel of an application in a much more drastic way. So this is an application which I developed, by the way, for my wife, who is a beautician, and she's using the CRM for managing her customers and her appointments on a daily basis. And the idea was that, well, as it's about beauty, we always like to change colors now and then. And obviously we don't want to go through binary generation when we are changing the look and feel of things. So we decided to actually use this application to play with that well, underused feature which Quantum brings to you. So if you have a look at this application, you can see that I use transparency all over the place, so that the two colors which I'm actually using are going to be shades of gray or shades of purple in that case, depending on what kind of color you're using, so that just by two colors I can give an application actually some more depth. So let's have a look at how this is actually looking like when you're using this in real life. So let's imagine that I'm setting up a different company here, and I want to use a completely different logo and different look and thing. So let's choose a logo here. So I'm using this for my gallery. Let me just redraw that a little bit. I've got an issue with my image picker here. There's always something which you have to invest some more time in. Let's choose a different background. There we go. And I want to change the colors as well. So colors, I can either enter them in hexadecimal values here, or I can use a color picker. So color picker can either be a palette in my application. I can also directly pick some colors from the logo. And I can also pick some colors from the background, for example. And then I can test the colors. Testing the colors is actually going to send these colors to the server. The server is going to build a theme, and then it's going to apply it. So I think I have something is a bit dark here. I thought oh yeah, I didn't press the right button here. Test the colors, there we go. Okay, so we've got an application which changed the theme rather dramatically. And the thing is that these values are obviously available in the cloud. In my case, the pictures are also uploaded to the cloud. So if other people or employees of that company, in this case it would be my daughter as well, well, they will download the same theme also to their iPad, so that, well, it will be a coherent feeling when you're treating your customers. So you can imagine what kind of value this can bring to your application. So if you're in seasonal changes, so you want to allow personalization even to the end customer, or you want to enable people from different branches or subsidiaries to make changes, theme generation is it's like limitless. Obviously, you have to make sure that there are some safeguards in, like, are the colors providing sufficient contrast with text colors, for example. Do you want to do also borders border modifications? Do you want to enable people to use different font sizes? And it's relatively limitless, the way you can build your themes. But the more flexibility you give to people during retheming, obviously the more things can also break in your UI. In my case, I went for colors, just for colors, because it's the safest thing, that I'm not getting cut off texts. But on a basis, there is no limitation on what you can do. You can build a full theme and download it back to your application. You just have to make sure that the skin names are obviously the same names which you use in your application, and there you go. So let's have a look, like step by step, how this is actually working in code. So the first thing which I'm doing here is I'm opening a color picker. So the color picker is kind of a web view which I'm initializing, and then I'm actually getting the color value from a base 64 image representation, either from the logo or from the background or from a palette, which is hard-coded here. The second thing which I'm doing is I'm assigning the color, and I'm testing whether the color is dark enough. So there's a little function which I also mentioned in the article, which I wrote, and based on which Mary invited me to do this tech talk today. So I'll give you a little quick look at this article as well, which is on Basecamp. So this is testing actually whether a color is dark enough. As I'm using white on my buttons, I have to make sure that the colors which I'm using are actually valid colors, unless people will not see anything. So once I validated the whole thing, I will jump here and I will test the company theme. Company theme is doing nothing more than making a service call. And the service call is sending the values, my new primary color and my new secondary color. It's sending them to my server. The server is answering with a JSON object, which is my new theme, which I'm then using for creating the theme based on that JSON string. So I'm creating this with a name, and then I'm applying the theme at runtime. So this, in this case here, my preview theme. So this is everything that is happening in the application. Now, what is happening on the server? Now, before we look at what's happening at the server, because as I said, you can create this JSON string yourself. You can write it by hand. You can already prepare it. Well, I didn't want to write the JSON theme per hand. But before we have a look at what's happening on my server, let's have a look at how a theme is looking like. A theme consists of many skins, and every skin is represented by a JSON file. So these JSON files are looking like that. So there are some main properties, like for example, background color, border colors. We also have different kind of like font colors, which we have here. And then we have different forks for different operating systems, like for Android here. Now you should know that your JSON string, which is your dynamic theme, is looking almost the same like this one here. It will just be an object which provides names node, where your skin is being mentioned like skin name, double point, and then your JSON object. Whereas in here, you have a file with the name of the skin, and then inside your JSON object, basically. So what we have to create, or what I decided to do, is I decided to upload my theme, copy-paste style from Kony Quantum to my server, and to pass these files right away, so that if I build a new theme for my application and I have a couple of new skins, I just have to copy over all the skins which are relevant, and the server will have to do nothing else than scan these files for the appropriate color codes. So for your convenience, as my backend is working in PHP, I developed an example application for you, which is also available online in Basecamp in my article, which is based on Java. So this one is doing virtually everything which my current server is doing. It is creating a theme based on the colors which you're giving to it. So the principle is very easy. I mean, if you have the JSON which is already out there, which has been produced by Quantum, well, we just have to go there and do a file replace of the colors, right? So that would be the normal approach. So we go there, we look for our color codes and replace them. So if you want to use this feature, obviously you have to make sure that the color codes, which are your main and your primary and your secondary color, these color codes should be unique in your application, so you're not by accident overwriting some font colors which you don't want to change, for example. So let's have a look at what's being produced here. Let's just run this theme generator. There we go. This is the output. As you can see, this little application is running over, it's taking into account that we have the default primary and secondary color, and we have our new primary and secondary color. Then we are running over the file system, and we discovered that there are 64 legible files because I'm only taking into account files which are starting with skin. But this, I'm avoiding overhead of checking out skins which are system skins and which I do not want to modify in any case. Afterwards, while I'm checking out the colors, and I'm checking if I want to actually replace them, because there are many colors which I do not want to replace. I just want to replace my default colors. Now you can see there's something else which I have to do, and that's related to the fact that the skins which are shipped and which are created by Quantum, they use opacity, whereas the JSON string representation which you have to provide for the dynamic theme approach uses transparency. So we have to, unfortunately, we have to turn these values around so we can make sure that whatever you upload based on your theme which you passed will be what you expect it to be. Now, if you're creating your JSON theme from scratch and you're not parsing, well, then you don't have to do any kind of like search for a color code and replace it and strip off the opacity value, twist it around. But well, in my case, where I'm passing the actual existing theme, I have to do that. So at the end, the result is a full-fledged theme, which is one big JSON object with the name of my skin and then representation of my skin. You can see that I'm getting a background color which is looking like this, whereas if I'm looking at the SkinFlex URI logo color here, let me see if I can find exactly the same color. SkinFlex URI, SkinFlex must be hiding somewhere. There it is. So if you look at the background color here, you will see that the one which has been produced by Quantum uses a double F here at the end, and what we have to produce, what we have to provide is actually the opposite, which is this 00 value here. So this was the trickiest part in getting this to work, but the API is really truly powerful and enables you to change the theme of your application really literally at the push of a button. Now, I think it would be great to ask the question, as some of the folks of, well, 20% of you guys are aware of this feature. I would like to know how many of you have used this. Oh, great, there it is. 11%, great. Well, I would really love to know how you've done it and which use case you've done it, which takes me to having a look at this article which I wrote. So this is the article which is available on Basecamp, where I'm looking at, well, you can change your look and feel of the application by switching skins. Obviously, we do this at a regular basis. We have multiple themes, and we can also create new themes based on a server download, which I'm illustrating here. So this is really a step-by-step approach of what we have to do, what are little special things we have to bear in mind, and how we can do this actually at runtime. So the examples which I've shown you are all here. So I would really look forward to seeing your comments here, like how have you done it? What is your approach? So that we can share a bit more best practices on this cool feature and make our applications more lively. That takes me to the end of my presentation. So please let me know if there are any questions.
Hi, Paul. There is one question which says, what's the feasibility of passing a JSON object of a flex with widgets to the device to create a dynamic UI, just like the way you showed for theming?
Well, the themes is one thing. There's an API for that. Now, when it comes to widgets, it's more difficult. First of all, we don't have an API for that as far as I know. However, you can obviously pass a JSON to your application and interpret it at runtime and then create that structure yourself. Actually, in this application, what I'm doing here as well, I'm doing a bit something similar like that. So if I'm looking at the layout, for example, I'm creating forms here, where I'm having like form fields, I'm having lists, I'm having either text fields, I'm having numeric fields and that kind of stuff. I'm having checkboxes. And actually I'm enabling my wife here to create new categories of data she wants to collect and data she wants to treat. Well, all this is being saved on a server, just in a database, and I'm loading that structure back to my application where I'm interpreting it, and then I'm creating the forms which we can see here when we're looking at a customer record or when we are looking at the structure of an appointment. So dynamic applications are possible. However, there's no out-of-the-box feature for that. Now, if you look at the widgets and the parameters you have to give to a widget, you can probably get pretty close to a JSON, which you can interpret in a relatively easy way in your application. But it's nothing which comes out of the box today, as far as I know.
All right. I hope, Jofin, you've got the answer. There's one more from Pawan. He's asking, what about the impact on the performance of the application? And then there is a follow-up question which says, for a sample app with 1 or 2 screens, I guess it might be fine. But for an enterprise app that has around 400 screens, what's the impact?
The impact is moderate, I would say. I mean, this application on the right side, it's used in production and it is relatively complex. It is not having 400 screens though, I can assure you. I think it all boils down to the number of skins you really want to treat. Now, when you start this application, in my case, this application is pulling the theme every time you log in. Okay, so if you look at the startup time of this application, well, I'm reinstalling it here at the same time. So once I log in, it will pull the theme dynamically and apply it, and you can see that's lightning fast. So the generation of the JSON, downloading and applying a theme at runtime, it's lightning fast. Now I'm doing this against 64 skins. Now, depending on how you structure your application, how many skins you are using, and to how many individual skins you can actually boil down your application, because if you have 400 screens, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have 4,000 skins, then it can be lightning fast, as the skins are reused from one screen to another. So check out the number of your skins, and then you can probably imagine the answer. Oh, also, one thing which is interesting to know is, and that's what I'm covering here in my theme generation as well, one of the inputs I'm passing here is the channel. Because when I'm regenerating my theme, I do not have to provide all the special parameters for all channels. So if I'm looking at the quantum skins, they will have specific settings for iOS, for Android, for SPA, for whatever. I mean, everything which I'm covering with my application. Now, when I'm downloading this from an iPad, I know that I only need the iPad specific parameters. So I need the standard parameters and I need the iPad parameters. So I can already download a theme which is much more compact than the hard-coded theme. This is also helping to save performance.
Right. Thanks, Paul. Thanks for the answer. There is a comment from Joffin. He's saying that it would be great. It's a feedback for you, Paul. He's saying that it's going to be great if you write an article on dynamic UI too.
My pleasure. I think it's a good idea.
Yep. So there's another one. Can this functionality be used to bake the theme into the form at publication time only, and also be used for real time?
I'm not sure whether I'm understanding the question to 100%. Well, application time versus real time. I mean, this is as real time as it gets, right? What we've done here. So, what would the difference be between application time or real time? I mean, I don't have to restart the application or something like that. I mean, if we go through this again, I can virtually change my application at any time, can give it all kinds of more or less unlikely colors. And I can apply this like instantly. So Thomas, maybe you can repeat the question, maybe as something which I did not get, but
yeah, sure. So let me just repeat that again. There is a follow-up question also with that. Can this functionality be used to bake the theme into the form at publication time only, and also be used for real time? And he's adding that some clients may want to lock the theme down at publication.
All right. Well, if you want to lock that down, well, I mean, in this case, if you're locking it down at publication, then actually you're going to create your theme in Quantum. You save it, and it will be locked down. Now, if you want to use that feature for modifying colors of a skin more easily, then you could probably just use a theme generator like this one, but instead of creating a JSON theme, you have it write out the actual files. Obviously, you have to write the files for all channels so that they will be, that you can copy them back to Visualiser. Because virtually what you're going to do is just do a massive file replacement where you change the color codes of two main colors all over your skins, and you save your skin for that version.
I hope, Martin, you've got the answer. In case if you still have questions, we still have a few minutes. We're staying here, and you can post it in the Q&A panel. In future also, if you have questions, we have Basecamp community available, forum. You can go to forum and ask questions, and we'll tag Paul to answer you.
Right, and if you want to continue this conversation, as I mentioned, there's this article out here which triggered this tech talk, because before it was just an article. I know we made it something more demoable. So yeah, please meet me there. If there are any questions, comments, share your experience. Let's meet on Basecamp.
Yeah. Thank you, Paul. Thanks for your time and session today. I'm sure it was useful, and I assume everyone enjoyed it and taking a lot of information back home today. Thanks, everybody, for joining session today. There are a couple of slides that I want to show. We have a next webinar on 12th of December. Paul, can you stop sharing so that I can share?
Definitely. Let me find my Zoom panel here.
And yeah, meanwhile, we are still here. The Q&A panel is open. Feel free to post more questions if you have.
Okay, Tanmay, you can take over.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Thanks, Paul. Yep, if you can see my screen, the webinar is about, it's a quantum roadmap webinar. Make sure you register so you get timely updates, and you know, you'll get a notification about when we start the webinar so that you don't miss it. We have a Facebook group you can join if you're first time joining this webinar. This is the link that you can go and join the Facebook group. I keep on, making posts there, and if there is any webinar, any event of that sort, I make sure that I update these groups. We also have a YouTube channel. You can go and see the past webinar recordings. This one will also be available under this link. And then we are on Twitter. Follow us on Twitter and see what updates we do. Lastly, this one is the link that you see below, the third point, basecamp.kony.com/s/events, where you can see the past recordings. You can see it on YouTube also. You can see it here as well. By tomorrow or maybe end of day today, you will see the webinar recording up on Basecamp. So you can share the link in case you want to share with others. You can share the webinar recording with other people, and it will be available for you to see it again. If you have any topic suggestions, any webinar, a particular topic that you want to see, you can share it on basecamp@kony.com, and we'll make sure we do that topic for you guys. If there are any more questions, let me just take a look. There is one more, Paul. I suppose we cannot change fonts on the app in runtime. It's just the color sizes. Am I right?
Well, you could actually change the fonts as well. You'd probably have to be careful with that, as if you're changing font sizes as well, you can change any value of your skin here. Now, if you're choosing a much larger or much smaller font size here, you might end up with unreadable buttons or with text which are bleeding over your UI. It's a bit dangerous. I mean, it really depends on the way you build your UI, how flexible UI is for taking in larger texts. It is possible, yes, but I'd be very careful with that. But it's a great thing, for example, if you want to have multiple skins for, just for the sake of readability, for elderly people, for example, or for people with impaired vision. But your app will have to, be able to take in the bigger fonts.
Okay. The follow-up comment he says is, sorry, I meant font family.
Oh, font family. I guess if I have a look at, let me have a look at the skin. The font family should be in there. Yeah, font family, it's the font name. So I'm seeing that here in the skins. So there's a font underscore name property for that. And yes, you can change it. Obviously, it will have to be a font which is available in your application. So if you're planning to use a new font, it will have to be an asset in your application. So that would be my upfront warning. But if you're switching to another standard font which is available in the OS, then you can use it.
Okay. I don't see more questions. Thanks again, everybody, for joining today. If you have questions or you want to ask, sometime again, make sure you use Basecamp Forum. That's the active channel that we have where you can post questions and get answers. Thank you once again for joining. We'll close the session now, and make sure you join the next webinar. See you in the next webinar then. Thank you.
Bye, guys. Thank you.